Alright, I am going to start up again, and what I want to do is to go over as much as possible between now and maybe 11:30 or so. I mean, this is a lot of overload, this is a lot of stuff to throw at you because we've done two programs. Most of you were in both classes today, so we've done two programs. But again, these are our requirements. Alright, I'm not going to run over those again because I already did run over those with you. Alright, but taking it from the top, we first declared our class variables. We were told we were supposed to have a string representing the ID number, an integer representing, a string representing the employee name, an int representing the ID number, a string representing the department, and a string representing the position. We can call those things anything we want, but it's good to use names that are at least somewhat indicative of what they're supposed to be doing. So I can put a comment over here, employee name, employee ID number, employee department, and employee position. Alright. Then, so we declared our class variables, and this is a really important concept. I want people to get this. That is, since we declared these four variables here, since they are not declared inside of a method, would you all agree with that? They're in the class, but they're not in a method. What that means is they're available to every single thing that's in the class. Anything that's in the class can automatically use these without having to do anything special. All right, and that'll become more important as we go on, just so you know. All right, and again, I don't care that much whether you really had a comment there off the side or not. But then what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure, so this one right here, this constructor has no arguments passed to it. So if you look up on the screen here, that's when we created employee Susan. That's the constructor that's called. Because that constructor, this is called instantiating an employee object right there, that line in the blue. We are creating an object, we're calling it Susan. And since we are passing it absolutely nothing within the parentheses, we're telling it to call our constructor. So when we do that, when we come in there and we set this up right now, forget about these lines for a second. Right now, if we were to do a system.out.println right there, what should happen is Susan's name should be empty string, her ID number should be 0, her department should be empty string, and the position should be the empty string. And can I prove that? I can try. So I can come out right here and I can say system.out.println Susan. And I'll put afterwards plus \n \n. I'll put that in a few times. All right. So let's see if indeed that works. So again, this line right here should print out a blank, a 0, a blank, and a blank. You won't see the blanks, of course, but you should see that 0 if this worked. There's the 0. Notice how it's kind of pushed over a little bit because it tried to print out the other two things. All right, to make it a little easier, I could have come in here and done this. I could have said printing out Susan's no arg info. All right, so I can do that. Now when I print it out and I run it, it's going to look a little nicer at least. Ran off the screen, but there. Printing out Susan's no arg info, you just print out the 0. All right, well, that wouldn't make much sense because she has a name, she has an ID number, she has a department, and she has a position. So we're calling all those set methods. So now, I'm not going to keep doing this, but if we kept printing it out right here, if we print it out after this, it would be Susan Myers 0 blank blank. Then Susan Myers 47,899 blank blank. Then Susan Myers Susan Myers 47,899 accounting blank. And then finally, Susan Myers 47,899 accounting vice president, or what we wanted at the bottom. All Then we do the same kind of thing, but when we create Mark Jones, we're setting his department to IT, we're setting his position to programmer. So if I come through here and copy this line right here, oops, and now printing out Mark's, let's call it semi-arg info, and that'll have to be Mark. Hopefully I didn't make any mistakes in there. All right, so there's, come on. There was Susan's stuff, and there's Mark's stuff. Notice Mark had a name and had a number, but didn't have a department and didn't have a position, so it had blanks for both of those. All right? And then, since we've set everything for Joy right from the beginning, that'll call the constructor that expects everything passed in. All right? So, if again, I come through and do the similar type of thing in here that we just looked at, kind of redundant because we've already printed it out, but that's fine. So now printing out Joy's all args info. Oh, ass args, that's good. Yeah, I was wondering, I didn't think that was that funny, but okay. So there's the no arg, there's the semi-arg, and there's the all arg. So we just, when we called it, we had to pass it either no parameters, or 2 parameters, or 4 parameters. If we tried to pass it 3 parameters, we would have gotten an error message, because there is no method in here, there is no constructor that accounts for 3 parameters. All right, so I'm going to come back in here, and those things I put in at the top there, for all 3 of them, I'm going to remove those. In fact, I'll just comment them out. Never a bad thing to do something like that when you're just creating the program. Oops. Yeah. Thank you. So now, unless I goofed up, if I say run it, there it's back to the way it was. All right. Now that was quick, and we're not exactly done yet, but what I wanted to mention to you again was when I create an object, it's expecting to have either nothing passed into it, or 4 things passed into it, or 2 things passed into it. It does not matter the order in which you put those constructors. You could have the all args, then the middle, the semi-args, then the no args, etc. Any order, doesn't matter. So when you overload a method like this, the order in which you put those doesn't matter. But what must be different is what's in the parentheses. We're going to go over overloading a lot in a later chapter. All right. Since we came in and we did this for Susan, and we didn't set up anything for her, we had to call the set name, or set emp name, the set ID number, the set department, and the set position. And you'll notice on these, all of them except ID number expect strings, so they have to be within double quotes. Not like in JavaScript where it can be single quotes or double quotes. Here it has to be double quotes. If I tried putting this in, the double quotes, all right, oops. All right, I'm purposely introducing an error right there. So it says errors, there's errors that exist. Do I want to proceed? Yeah, proceed anyway. And it's telling me, all right, unresolved compilation problem. Set ID number int in the employee is not compatible with string, which is what we passed in. So it's trying as best it can to let me know there was an incompatibility there. And it didn't understand what I was trying to do. But it's a mistake people pull off times make. In the same way, if I came here to accounting and I left those off, all right, and I saved it and tried to run it again, I'm going to again come up with that error message. I'll tell it to proceed. And again, another, accounting cannot be resolved to a variable. It thinks that right here, since it's not in double quotes, it thinks there's a variable in my program called accounting. There isn't one. Now, I could have done something. I could have created a string there, set it equal to double quote, accounting, double quote, something like that. But that, in this context doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. So, with Susan, since Susan doesn't have anything set, we'll set her name, we'll set her ID number, we'll set her department, we'll set her position. Mark already has his name and his ID number set. So we only have to call set department and set position. And Joy has everything set, her name, her ID number, her department, and her position. So we don't have to call any of the set methods. All right? When we call this, I mean, hopefully this right here makes sense to people. The \T are tabs. All right? And that right there, hopefully I cleaned it up now. So those lines that you see right there in blue are these lines right here. All right? But what we did was we overrode the toString method. Okay? And I want to show, I'll show you something just so you see this. All right? I'm going to take the toString method that we have right now, and I'm going to comment the entire thing out. Did you hear what I said? So I'm going to come in here into our demo, not the demo, the other one, this one, and I'm going to take that whole toString method that we put in there, and I'm going to comment all of it out. /* and end it with */. And maybe, at least, you're going to be surprised at what prints. Anybody want to guess what that is? Well, you're half right. It's the address and memory of where that exists. Because by default, toString doesn't know how to handle what we asked it. So it says, I don't know what you want, but I'll give you the address and memory of where it exists. So toString by itself, when you try to, toString is very powerful, but when you try to take toString and put it on an object like we're doing, unless you override toString, that's what it gives you. And that's typically almost always not going to be what you want. So what we did was we let the system know, hey, when you get to toString, call my toString. So I've got this local variable that's called the string, and I'm going to set it equal to plus equals means equals this plus this, etc. So call getEmpName. So for instance, for Susan, whatever her name was, what was it? Susan Myers. All right. So for that case, this is going to return Susan Myers. So the string now has Susan Myers. Then put a couple tabs in it. Then put whatever her ID number was, which was 47899. Then a couple more tabs. Then put her department, which was accounting, and a couple more tabs. Then put her position, which was vice president. So that, the first time we call that on Susan, that's what gave us this, because of the fact that we overrode the toString method. That make sense? All right. Then we do the same thing for Mark Jones and the same thing for Joy Rogers. Now, I decided to show that to you now, even though it's not really discussed. I don't know if it's discussed in this chapter or not. All right? We'll see when we get there on Wednesday. All right? So, I mean, it's early, but basically that's what I wanted to get through. So let me finish up with about 5 more minutes, okay? First thing, again, the program that you're going to be working on is this car program. So you're going to write a program that's named car, okay? That should be the name of your class, car. And then when you run your demo program, call it car demo, just like we did with employee and employee demo. This car class will have 3 fields in it. Year, model, and I want you to use their cases. These are your specs. All right, and it should be an integer, make, which is a string, speed, oops, not there, speed, which is also an integer. All right. Then you're going to write one constructor. That's it. So you got it easier than the example we just went over. As it says, it should accept the car's year, model, and make as arguments. And it should assign 0 to the speed field. It isn't moving yet, so that makes sense. All right. Then you can create appropriate accessor and mutator methods, either manually or the way I showed you. And again, that was source, generate getters and setters. All right, that's all it was. Then you will create 2 of your own methods. One that's called accelerate and one that's called break. In addition to that, I would like you to at least try to override the string method the way we just did it. All right, if you try and you have problems with it, that's fine. But otherwise, see if you can, because that's the way that professional programmers do it. All right, you might as well start learning to do it the right way from the get-go. So you will write an accelerate method. What does that do? It's real easy. It should say something like speed plus equal 5. Boom. That's adding 5 miles an hour to your speed. Then what do you think the break one will do? Speed minus equal 5. Or speed equals speed plus 5 and speed equals speed minus 5. Something like that. All right? Now, notice this. It's a little different than the way we just did it. Demonstrate the class in a program that creates a car object. So that's your car object demo. All right, create a single car object, just one. All right, and if you say, well, Jeff, I tried doing this, but that 2-string didn't make sense, then don't use the 2-string. It's okay. But I will tell you, it says calls the accelerate method 5 times. Here's an idea. Put that in a loop. Don't manually call it 5 times because that's silly. So it should say something along the lines of current speed of car is after you call it the first time. So you call it 5 times. Current speed of car is 5. Current speed of car is 10. Current speed of car is 15. Current speed of car is 20. Current speed of car is 25. Then again in a loop, call the break method 5 times. So then it should say current speed is 20. Current speed is 15. Current speed is 10. Current speed is 5. Current speed is 0. Does that make sense? This is easier than the program we just did as a class because it does not have an overloaded constructor, and you can write it if you don't want to. Then if you want to try to put the override the 2-string method, fine, and if you don't, that's also fine. It might be easier to not do it, to be honest with you. It's a shorter program, but I want it done as 2 different files: car for your car class and car demo for your car demo class. Do not put a main in the car class. Do put a main in the car demo class. All right, so you've got this one. I want this one done and working, so I want both of these. Eventually, you'll take your folder and copy both of them into your H drive or email me both those folders. Does that make sense? All right, because that's really, I'm finished. I will go over Chapter 3. All right, again, I don't have this on here, and I don't want to go over PowerPoint, so I'm just going to lecture, and what I'll do is when we get to a point, I might bring up a program from the chapter or whatever, or just key some stuff in manually myself. All right, if there are no questions, I'm finished. Enjoyed a lovely weather.